Everyone, it's time for another edition of Beaver Banter.
Beaver Sports Talk lives here.
It is the Beaver Banter podcast presented by Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. I'm CJ Baumgartner. Ian Rivers over there. Ian, another week of Beaver football is in the books, and we are fully getting going with games coming up this weekend for women's soccer, cross country, volleyball, men's and women's golf is coming up on Monday. We're like into it now, which is awesome to see.
Yeah. Yep. We are fully in the swing of things. Of course, this will be our last kind of preview episode for the other portion of the fall sports. And then it's all recaps and previews for future games from here. It's exciting to get back into it for sure.
Yeah, we're getting right back into it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about on the Beaver Banter podcast presented by Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. First, though, we're going to mention some hockey stuff because what would the Beaver Banter podcast be if we didn't mention a little hockey? We talked about last week's show about how the roster had officially been out and a lot of veteran players and a not controversial, but certainly been a talking point in kind of college hockey circles with Bemidji State's roster drop. So we talked about that on last week's episode. Go back and watch that wherever you get your podcasts, as well as streaming on YouTube when you type in the Beaver Banter podcast. More news, though, Ian. Bemidji State men's hockey has announced their captains for this season.
Yeah, they announced the leadership group and we've got Kirkland Irie wearing the C this year for the Beavers. He's going to be your captain for the 2025-26 Beaver men's hockey team. And then the alternate captains, I never know whether they're alternate captains, assistant captains, associate captains. This says that they will serve as alternates. So I'll go with alternate captains. We got Vince Corcoran, Adam Flamang, and Mitch Wolf to serve as the alternate captains this year. So Irie will wear the C, and we'll have 3 A's in Vince Corcoran, Adam Flamang, and Mitch Wolf. I like that. I like that leadership group. You've typically always had upperclassmen, juniors and seniors with Tom Serratori. I can't remember if Leighton Road had an A on his jersey as a sophomore. I don't recall. I don't think he did. Other than that, it's mostly just upperclassmen with Serratori. You rarely see anybody younger than a junior, and it's almost always seniors that are wearing, especially the Captain C on their chest. So Kirkland Irie, good for him. I think he's a player that's been playing well over the last couple of seasons. He's really grown into this leadership role, and hopefully now this season we can get good on and off the ice production from Kirkland. And I think that's something that can definitely happen.
Yeah, exactly. And, the thing about the naming of the captains is that, obviously the players know in the locker room who kind of is in charge. The players know who really is the one who's kind of going to be doing things. But it's just that official recognition, and it's important because it kind of lets the rest of the world know that this team thinks is going to – it lets the rest of the world know this team believes these, handful of guys are going to be kind of the driving force behind this team's success, behind their failure, whatever it ends up being. And so, yeah, it's cool to see those guys get their shout out and get their recognition. And we'll kind of roll on for the upcoming hockey season. I know there's a lot of, again, kind of olderish players or players with a lot of hockey experience that are joining this team, but you got to give it to the guys who have been there, the guys who are have kind of made their bones and know exactly what Serratori's looking for in terms of his Beaver hockey program. So like Ian said, nothing really huge that's kind of sticking out there. Pretty straightforward decision, or is there somebody who you feel like got left off this list?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. These are kind of the guys that have been there, done that. They're the guys that have had the most experience, playing on the team. All of them have been around, and it is. You said it. It's pretty standard. There's really no surprises here. I don't know. I guess I don't have too much to say about it because it is just such a yeah. Okay, that makes total sense to me. I don't really have a reaction other than that's kind of I didn't go through and make my predictions for who would be captains, but I guess that kind of comes with the territory that we didn't really know what the roster was, up until like maybe 2 days before this was announced. So again, not really surprising. I'm happy with this group, and I'm getting really excited for the season, which is just over a month away. By the way, a month and 1 day. So keep your.
By the way,
keep
we're
your wits
into
about it.
September. Women's hockey starts at the end of the month. So
Women's hockey starts this month, everybody. That's
yes, exactly. Get ready, Sanford Center Ice. It's time.
Yeah.
It's Sanford Center Ice month.
Yes.
Feeling it. Bemidji, I don't have the schedule right in front of me. Bemidji State women's hockey starts at the Sanford Center, right?
I'm not sure.
Now I'm overthinking because
I know that the men's team starts in Anchorage. That will be October 3rd and 4th. But the women's team will start at home against Wisconsin, and then at home again the next weekend against Robert Morris. So September 26th and 27th against Wisconsin, and then the following weekend against Robert Morris. So 4 games at home in the Sanford Center for the women's hockey team.
Bemidji
to start
State
the season.
Place to be in late September.
Exactly.
So, all right, there's your men's and women's hockey updates to kick off our show at the beginning of the fall sports season.
Well, there is one more men's hockey update that kind of dropped surprisingly this morning. Kind of the big news, especially for people that are going to want to watch the men's hockey team. This doesn't, unfortunately, apply to the women's hockey program, but Bemidji State men's hockey put it out on their social media pages today. Here, let me just read the tweet off for you. Stream every Beaver game this season on Midcoast Sports Plus, the official streaming home for the CCHA. Plans start as low as $8.99 a month when you sign up for an annual subscription by October 3rd. So that's an annual subscription, $8.99 a month. So you might have to do a little bit of math there to determine whether or not the value for you is going to be good. I know there are some people that really only like having it for the 5 months that the Beaver men's hockey team is playing. So if you still want to pay the monthly price, I have not gone through and priced it out yet to figure out which is cheaper. But that is a big discount for the annual price. It's usually $24.99 a month. This is $8.99 a month. So you're saving about 64% on CCHA streaming, which is a pretty big deal for anybody that does want to do the annual subscription. You will have to do it through the web. The app, if you have the app on your phone, it will not let you do it on the app. And that's something that I learned last year when I was trying to re-up my subscription after month 1 or something like that. And then we had somebody in the Discord today that had that same problem. And I did recall that you will have to do it through the web browser. So
you can't do it online. Or you can't do it on the app specifically. You just got to go to that desktop computer, go to your Chrome app, your Safari, wherever it is, and do it.
They did find a workaround to do it on the phone. If you really want to do it on your phone, just delete the Midco app from your phone. Because if you go to the Midco website and try to do it, it'll just keep kicking you back to the app. So this person just actively deleted the app off their phone so that it wouldn't kick them to the app, and then they did it on the web browser on their phone. But yeah, it's probably just easier to grab your laptop, or if you're at your desktop at work or something like that, just go and re-up that subscription. Like
such a great deal though. I can't believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not gonna lie, this morning I did not read the annual part of that until I just actively read it out loud, and so I was like, man, that's a steal. They're giving it away for $8.99 a month. It makes sense because they said you have to get it by October 3rd. And if you're paying monthly, then obviously the first month would be $8.99, but everything after that. But you do have to get it by October 3rd. So if you try to wait until that Friday morning of the first game that the Beavers play, you might be paying full price. So just go and lock that in right now. If you're getting the annual subscription anyways, it won't matter when you start it because you'll have the whole season. So yeah, big news today for anybody that gets the annual subscription for Midco. Go get on that right now.
Get on it. It's a great way to watch all the Beaver games, and then you're set for the season. That way, when the game number 1 rolls around, you're like, oh, shoot, I got to log in. Puck drops in like 5 minutes. I got to sign up for my account. No, you're already taken care of. you're good to go. And the other good part, too, is when you want to watch like Bemidji State football, when you want to watch Bemidji State volleyball, women's soccer, all that stuff on the NSIC app, that's free.
Yes.
Unlike a certain school out in Michigan that decided to paywall their games.
Exactly.
So that's a great thing as well. And you can follow up on all the Beaver sports stuff for free, which is really, really great. Or you could just listen to the Beaver Banter podcast and we'll tell you what happens and we can go about it that way. So it's what we call a win-win in the podcasting business. All right. I think that's our good hockey discussion now. That gets us all set. We're going to talk a little football. We'll talk women's soccer, men's and women's golf, cross country, volleyball, all that stuff coming up on the Beaver Banter podcast presented by Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. But before we do that, we need to talk about the good folks at Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation and how they make the Beaver Banter podcast possible. Once a Beaver, always a Beaver. The Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation is here to keep that green and white pride going strong for its 50,000 graduates around the world. From scholarships that open doors for students to events that bring BSU alumni and friends together, you can get connected, give back, and leave a legacy at Bemidji State. Whether you're a proud BSU grad, a local supporter, or just love cheering on the Beavers, come be a part of the action at bsualumni.org. That's bsualumni.org. Again, bsualumni.org, bsualumni.org. Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation, proud sponsors of the Beaver Banter podcast. They've been great. We really appreciate them hopping on board this year. Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation helping us out at the Beaver Banter podcast. All right, Ian, Bemidji State football week 1. We were amped. We were ready. It was a close game through about the first kind of third of it. And then Bemidji State started to lose a little bit of steam as the game went on. We found out a couple things in the game. And I think number one is that we learned how the quarterback battle was won, and it kind of was in a route that I think a lot of us looked at and thought, yeah, that's probably was not the most likely, but I think a very likely scenario.
Yeah, it played out about how I expected. Connor threw the ball more than I thought he would, which I was happy to see because last year I don't know that he threw the ball at all. And I was like, well, if you're going to bring him in and defense knows what you're going to do with him, then it's going to be pretty easy to stop him, even though he is such a talented athlete. And so it was encouraging to see that they were at least trying to use him in the passing game quite a bit. The passing game, unfortunately, didn't really get going all that well for the Beavers in this game. As a whole, the room was just 13 of 27 for 98 yards. And no touchdowns, no picks. Connor Carver did have 2 touchdowns on the ground on the game. But a rough start for some of these quarterbacks that have not as much experience in the game. But yeah, it was about what we expected, CJ, I think, from these quarterbacks. Carver carried the ball 14 times. Romack threw the ball 15 times. So almost exactly how we predicted that it would go, other than maybe Carver throwing the ball more than I expected.
Yeah, exactly. Connor Carver, 5 for 11, like you said, for 38 yards. Longest pass was 11, took 1 sack. But yeah, Zach Romack, kind of the starting quarterback. And again, it's hard to tell because we listened to the radio broadcast, and we saw some highlights. Great work by the Bemidji State University media relations team for getting some of those highlights out, like that Connor Carver first touchdown, just a patented Carver run because it just kind of was him getting that direct snap, bouncing off a couple of tackles at the line and just off to the races, and look to see a lot of that coming up this season. But it's hard to tell officially, so maybe we're misinterpreting some things. We're having to box score a little bit here because we didn't really feel like we wanted to pay for a Flow subscription for one game. But looking at Bemidji State's offense here, it looked like the rushing attack was able to get some work again with Carver going for 96 yards overall. Jaden Washington had 44 on 14 carries, average about 3 a carry. Isaiah Tisdale had 13 yards on a couple carries. Antonio Brown had 8 yards on 3 carries. So like the running game ended up being okay overall. I think the biggest thing just ended up probably being in that pass game, which really only, like you said, finished for a total of 98 combined yards on the day, and its longest pass was 22. And I think that's one where, the running game is going to travel. The running game, almost no matter who it is from season to season, is going to kind of not look similar, but get a similar amount of production. And quarterback is just so tough to tell in game one of Zach Romack being kind of the starting quarterback. And then, of course, Carver also working in there as well. But it just takes a little bit to get into rhythm. And it felt like Bemidji State got some scores early and then just kind of got in a mid-game funk. And by the time they were able to get their bearings, it really felt like, all right, well, now they just might be back just a little bit too far to really try and catch up on things. And when you look at Bemidji State, overall, when you look at some of the things like yardage, time of possession, when you look at some of this stuff, it's not that the box score was so out of the realm of possibility, like maybe the score would indicate in a 37-17 finish. First downs, Michigan Tech had 22, Bemidji State had 15. A lot of those came rushing. 13 of those first downs from Michigan Tech came on the ground. And for Bemidji State, this is 4 first downs offensively were gained because of penalties. So that's certainly a big factor as well, is that it just felt like the offense never really quite got clicking, got a couple flags that helped them out throughout the game, but overall, just kind of tough for the offense to really get into grip. But in rushing, it was 176-160. Michigan Tech had the slight advantage there, and that was off about 7 more carries. If you look at yards per attempt, Bemidji State actually was better with a 4.7 compared to a 4.3 on the other end. But overall, when you look at it, it was the passing game for Michigan Tech that ended up being a little better for them on that end. When you look at the individual stats here, Alex Bueno for Michigan Tech had 207 yards off 16 to 25, 2 touchdowns and a pick, and had a 47-yard pass as well thrown in there. And I think that was just kind of the difference when you look at Bemidji State and Michigan Tech at about equal running games, Ian, but it just ended up that the passing game, and by the way, Bueno started last year for Michigan Tech. So this is a guy that's a multi-year starter, comfortable in the offense, versus a team that was starting out 2 quarterbacks and trying to figure out what's working in actual game action.
Yeah, 100%. It was, there's a couple things that stick out. Obviously, he was really good in this game. I believe he had 3 touchdowns total. Bemidji played pretty well through the first half. And in my opinion, there was just a couple things that just, got out of hand in the second half. And I do think that the 20-point score line probably indicates a little bit worse than what it actually was. I think the game spiraled in the fourth quarter. The game was the Beavers had to lead at the end of the half. Yep. And then it was only a 7-point game at the end of the third quarter. And it just started spiraling out of control. I think Michigan Tech scored a touchdown, I believe, to go up 2 scores. And then I think it was that kickoff that Bemidji State fumbled right back to Tech and made it like a 20-point game. And it's like, all right, well, yeah, it just kind of spiraled once the fourth quarter hit. Bemidji State 0 for 3 on 4th down conversions. And I didn't watch this game. Yes, it was on Flow. I probably would have paid for the subscription for a month. I probably would have caved and done it if I wasn't at work. But I'm not going to pay for the subscription if I don't know that I can actually watch the game super consistently anyways. So I was just like, you know what? The radio will probably be fine enough. But I think that most of those 4th down conversions were in like big spots, like where we're, no, we don't want to kick a field goal here. We want the points. And it just never ended up, if some of those go the Beavers' way early, this might end up being a different game. It does look bad. Like, honestly, CJ, this might be, outside of maybe a playoff game against Colorado School of Mines, or maybe the first one against Angelo State that we had, this might be the worst loss I can remember the Beavers taking in the regular season in a long time. And it just felt like it spiraled.
Margin of defeat, or like just overall, like vibes?
Just in terms overall vibes of the loss. Like, it just, like, the 2 games.
I mean, that Northern one last year wasn't great, but yeah, I get your point.
Yeah, that's true. But at least that was like, all right, well, we were at the goal line, ready to try to win the game.
That was just one never really felt like that from a certain point on. Yeah, they were like a 2-point conversion away from beating Northern Whereas this one, it felt like
you
got
were
handed to you a bit.
exactly. So the season is by no means over. Like there's definitely work to be done. And hopefully they can, get in practice this week and work out some of the kinks and give the quarterbacks some more experience and hopefully, Michigan Tech, I think, is a weird opponent because you look at what they are, and they are 7-4 last year. And so, they didn't really do anything spectacular, but 3 of their losses were to BSU, who was a national quarterfinalist last year. And then 2 of the other ones were to Grand Valley State and Ferris State, who are also 2 of the best teams in the country. And so they didn't really lose a lot of games to teams that were that bad. So maybe they're just a little bit better than I gave them credit for, because
it's a nice football team. They play in just a brutal conference.
Yeah, that's true. And, you hope that they continue to play well so that it keeps your strength of schedule pretty high. And you hope that it was just a mess of the Beavers weren't on their game necessarily, and Michigan Tech was, and you're on the road to start the season. You don't really know what to expect. And it was just kind of hopefully the storm of, the perfect storm of negativity for the game, unfortunately, is what I'm going to hope. And the season is by no means over. We saw the Beavers 2 seasons ago, I think, CJ, maybe our first year. We started 0-2. Granted, that was against teams that we kind of maybe expected to.
You started out against Foggy and Mankato. You know that it's a tough draw.
It's tough sledding, and they ended up winning the last 9 games of that season, and then winning a playoff game at the tail end. So they ended up having a 10-win season after starting 0-2. Granted, this schedule is not quite as easy as that was for those 9 games, but I do think that this is not a disastrous scenario either, and especially when you consider the fact that it's not a conference game. So at the very least, you're still in pretty solid, in a pretty solid spot in the conference. It doesn't cost you anything in terms of ground lost early in the conference season, at least.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is, like you said, it's game 1, and you don't get preseason in college. You know what I mean? Like in the NFL, you get a few games, you get time to work this out, you get joint practices. In college, you don't get that. You just week 1, go at it. And yeah, like obviously Bemidji State's a good team. They're facing good opponents in practice every day, but it is different when you're in a game setting and when you're against people that you don't know and when you're against tendencies and things like that. There is none of that. I mean, heck, we saw in college football all last week where Arch Manning's a fraud and some of these other things happen. Clemson's cooked or some of these other things where it's like these guys are just kind of having to go out and figure it out in a game, like actual games that count. There is no like adjustment period for them. They kind of have to figure things out. And for Bemidji State, it's again, new offensive coordinator in Jordan Hine, who first game calling plays, first game running the offense as coordinator. He's a good coach, but you got to get through game 1. You have a new quarterback. You have, again, new offensive line that's got to get kind of worked out a little bit too. There's a lot of things that you just need reps to figure out. And the best reps you're going to get are in a game. It just is happening. It just happens to be that you faced a good team in week 1 on the road and with a bunch of things that you kind of needed to figure out, and time will help you out. You don't get, Mary and Minot and, Jamestown thrown right at you in the first 3 weeks of the season to kind of run into it. And that's the thing for Bemidji State. We'll see their running game again with Carver. I think they piece together a decent running attack. And I think it's just going to be, can they figure out that passing game? And not that it needs to get figured out next week and Romack or Carver's got to throw for 100+ yards with 2 touchdowns, no picks, although that'd be ideal. It just is more of like, can this next game we just see like, all right, they look more comfortable running the offense, or it looks more comfortable. The operation looks a little smoother. That's the biggest thing, because for Bemidji State, Ian, they go on the road again, and another not nice place to play. One of Bemidji State's tough losses last year happened in Winona, and they're going to have to try and take on Winona State again.
Yeah, they go down to Winona to play at Maxwell Field. Very interesting. Last week, Winona played against Minnesota Duluth at TCO Stadium in Eagan, Minnesota. So I don't know what that was about, but
I suppose if you find a way to make it work, it's halfway between both schools.
Yeah. Well, and I guess it doesn't say that it's a conference game. Let me check the standings to see
Is
if
that
it
like
updated.
it? I wonder if it's a like
Maybe
because
it's a
Bemidji
neutral.
State got Michigan Tech on the schedule.
Maybe
And
neither of those teams found an out of conference game.
Right, and they weren't scheduled to play each other as a conference game. So they're like, what if we just play each other non-conference? Would be my guess, kind of like they do in basketball sometimes.
Yeah, neither team is registered right now with a conference win or loss. So that must have counted as a non-conference game. So that's probably why it was played at a neutral site, which is very interesting. But Winona did not fare so well in that game. They lost 35-7 to Minnesota Duluth. I don't know whether that makes me more confident going into this game against Winona or a little bit more concerned that Duluth might be back after their 2 or 3 year hiatus at the middle of the conference. Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the stats at this game. Kyle Waljasper still over there at UMD, 15 of 21 for 259 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. He also added 13 yards because they count sack yards against him. So he had a net of 13 yards on the ground. For Winona State, Jackson Flottmeyer, 12 of 23, 144 and 1 pick. He was also their leading rusher with 24 yards on the ground. So looks like Duluth's defense really had their way with the Warriors in this game, and it just probably was a little bit too much for Winona to get off the ground. And this is obviously the hardest time to judge when you're playing teams like this, because last year, you come in at the beginning of the season, and I mean, all of Bemidji State's losses last year were like really weird. Like the one against Mankato early in the season, it's like, yes, that's Mankato, and they could have won it right at the end. Mankato kicked
It was
field
weird
goal
in
to
the
win.
sense of it was just a back and forth game that
And then they lost to Northern State, which we did not see coming at all. And then Winona, we're like, yeah, they're competitive. They could beat us, but Bemidji kind of got in their own way. I think they turned the ball over like 3 or 4 times in that game and really gifted that to Winona. So you just never know. And this is why you play the game, right? Like we kind of thought we were shoo-ins to beat Michigan Tech. Turns out Michigan Tech might have a little bit better team than we knew of coming in. And it's especially harder with Michigan Tech because I've seen them play now. I guess I didn't see them play, but like twice in my life at football. Like I have no experience with them at all. At least Winona and all these other teams, I've got 10 years of data and like where they've been finishing in the conference on. But it's still pretty hard to predict. But it looks like it might be a little bit of an easier game, at least to kind of get your feet wet. I don't want to jinx anything, but it's a familiar opponent, somebody that you've played many times. You played them last year. I can't remember a year dating back that we haven't played them. It feels like they're always on the schedule. So it is a South Division opponent. You start off your whole slate with 3 Southern opponents before you kind of jump into the Northern slate of your games. And honestly, this has really got to be when you kind of ramp it up because your next 2 games after this are, both at home, but it's against the 2 teams from Sioux Falls and Augustana. So you really want to get things figured out in this game before you turn around and have those 2. But we don't want to look too far into the future and make this a trap game.
Look at Ian on week 2 of the season already saying this is a must-win game.
Yeah, if you look at the playoff schedule, I think this is a must-win game because we're obviously going to make the playoffs. Not to look forward too much, but yeah. No.
It's an important one. I mean,
it's college football, man. It is kind of like
every week is a must-win game. Coaches. It's a cliche, but like they say it for a reason.
We made the playoffs as a 3-loss team last year, but that really just can't be the expectation.
Not in the new look region too.
Two losses is probably going to be, you're probably going to be in if you have 2 losses.
Right. It's 2
3 losses. You might need some
error. Like you give yourself a buffer. If you start 6-0, it means, oh, cool. That means we can afford to have 2 losses in the final 8 games or something like, you know what I mean? Whereas when you start like they did a couple of years ago, 0-2, it's like you have to win out or you're done. Like that kind of thing. Right. So if they start 0-2, yeah, they're going to put themselves in a very rough position going forward. Now, again, once you get through those Sioux Falls teams, you got Minot, Northern, Jamestown's on the schedule. There are teams that you can have some success against, but you need to get things rolling. And like you said, now Winona State gave up some yards through the air. Now, granted, that UMD quarterback's pretty good. Like, he's a good athlete. He's one of the better players in the conference. He's been there a while. So it's not to say, oh, well, they got carved up, so that means that Bemidji State should be able to carve them up too. Not quite for Winona State, but I will say that does give you some, maybe makes you feel a little better, like, okay, maybe this is a good opportunity against a little bit easier secondary. Maybe now with another week under your belt, like Romack and Carver can get some mojo going with the offense now that they have some things that they've seen, some things that they work on. Kind of what is the wrinkle? What are they going to do in their game planning to try and get ready? Because I think that's really what it hinges on. If they can get, not that again, it needs to be a Brandon Alt performance or even some of the better Sam McGath games, but like, can you just, complete the passes that you need to? It's in the NFL, most starting quarterbacks make the throws that are money and then make about 3 to 5 plays a game, and your team is almost always going to win. And can they do that? Can they keep the offense on the tracks? And then when they need to on like a 3rd and 8, can you make a throw? Can you make a play that ends up getting your team to be able to do that? Because if you look again at last week's time of possession, Bemidji State got outplayed 34-25, basically. You got outplayed in time of possession by 9 minutes of game time. And if you let that happen, you're going to be in trouble. So this is a team that wants to try and set on the ball a little bit more on offense. And you can do that with the running game you have with the multiple runners. It's just, can you get that passing game, not quote unquote figured out, but can you at least get enough positive momentum in that where it can keep the rest of your offense moving? And if that's the case, Bemidji State's going to be in a good position, I think.
Yeah, I would look to definitely lean on the rushing attack in this game, because it was tougher against Michigan Tech, not Northern Michigan, than we expected it to be. But it's really going to be a strength this year, I think, for the BSU football team. I don't think that we can expect that to be the case in every game. So I look for a strong bounce back performance from, honestly, the entire offense as a whole. I think the defense is harder to tell from box score watching and kind of listening on the radio exactly what the defense is doing. But it seemed like, especially in the first half, they weren't really playing that poorly. There were some penalties scattered around and that sort of thing. But I really don't have a good judgment of what they were doing right or wrong necessarily. So I'm not going to throw stones when I'm living in a glass house as of right now. But yeah, I'm confident the team can bounce back against this Winona State team. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder. Last year, Winona beat them, knocked them off for the first time in a while, especially for the first time since we've been covering the team, I think is the first loss to Winona State. So, yeah, it's going to be a good game. It's down in Winona. I was actually maybe planning on going to this game if my work schedule had kind of lined up a little bit better for me, but unfortunately not. I haven't been down to Winona area since I toured it for school when I was deciding where I wanted to go. So it's been over a decade at this point. Yes, it was 3 straight wins in a row for Bemidji dating back to 2022. And the last time they had lost to Winona prior to last year was back in 2019 in the pre-COVID era. So looking to restart a winning streak against the Warriors. Bemidji State 32-48-1 all time against Winona State. So again, we're just looking to bring that number up to 33, close the gap a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think Bemidji State does win this game. I'm going to pick the Beavers. It's the Beaver Banter podcast. I'm going to pick Bemidji State to win this game. But I think it'll be kind of I think it's going to be something along the lines of 20-17. I'm going to go 20-17 Beavers. I think they win. And this will be an interesting test. I know we've put a lot of pressure on the offense, but again, new look defensive line for Bemidji State. How does that look in game 2? And again, how does that impact, the time a quarterback has to throw, the time an offense has to work, the time that a running game is allowed to go? Are you allowing time, or are you taking time away from the offense to get it rolling in terms of pressuring the quarterback, speeding up the timing, things like that? or is it kind of like it the secondary ends up having to cover too long? That'll be another interesting thing to see, I think, overall, just to stray away, not to pick on the offense too much in this game. But I think the biggest breakdown is Bemidji State, I think, is going to get their season back on track. But it's just is in terms of the start, it wasn't one where you get done with it and you go, all right, we're just rolling on back to the national semifinal game or quarterfinal game. No problems. Like there's just going to be some things you got to work through. But I think Bemidji State wins 20-17. Ian, what's your prediction?
I think the defense stands strong in this game. I think the offense struggles early but gets going late. I think it's a 17-7 victory. Low scoring, but I think the Beavers find a way to pull it out and find a way to kind of right the ship heading back home against Sioux Falls. Kind of go make Winona feel bad for those goofy haircuts they had, preseason during their media day.
Goodness. Yeah. Did you see you guys?
Yeah.
Come on.
I also need you guys to win because I did some chirping online and I commented on that post. I think I said all this to lose to Bemidji State is crazy. And somebody just commented back 31-28. And I'm like, oh yeah, we did lose to them last year, didn't we? So I need you guys to pull through for me. So
somebody
please.
bookmarked it, and the official Winona State football account's going to dunk on us on the Beaver Banter account later.
Oh man!
So come on, guys!
Excellent.
Win one for the Beaver Banter Twitter account. Come on.
Yes, please.
All right, so let's move on. We'll talk about women's soccer. We'll talk about volleyball, cross country, men's and women's golf. That's all coming up. Before we do that, Ian, let's give another shout out to our great sponsors, Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation.
Sounds good. Do you want to be a part of the team behind the teams at Bemidji State? Join hundreds of dedicated fans when you donate to the Beaver Athletics and help BSU pursue its next championship. Your gift can power your favorite program, establish a scholarship for a student athlete you get to meet, and so much more. Every dollar brings the Beavers closer to raising another trophy. You can add to the proud tradition of success at Bemidji State, so don't wait. Give today at bsualumni.org/Beavers. That's BSUALUMNI.org/BEAVERS. CJ's gone. I don't know where he went. Sorry, guys. I was tabbed over. We're going to keep going. All right. So we have some women's soccer coming up this week. Fall sports is officially getting underway entirely. We got some exhibitions for the women's soccer teams. And now they finally get back to their usual Friday, Sunday rotation. They're down in Missouri this weekend. They have a game against Missouri Western State in St. Joseph, Missouri. That is at 7:00 p.m. this coming Friday, September 5th. And then on Sunday, they turn around. It'll start before the football starts up. Don't worry. You can get the first half of this soccer game in before your football on Sunday starts. The game is at 11 a.m. against Northwest Missouri State. That game is in Maryville, Missouri. And again, this is difficult. We don't really have too much to say about it's not preseason, but they really only play 3 out-of-conference games in the Division II soccer, schedule. Some other teams play more than the Beavers do. The Beavers have really only ever played 3 or 4 games out of conference. They have a couple exhibitions before the season starts, but they jump into conference play pretty early. And these are teams that we're familiar with. I think we beat Northwest Missouri State a couple years ago in the tournament, if I'm not mistaken. I can just click on the convenient little history tab here and scroll down. Actually, we haven't played them since 2015, but we did beat them in Bemidji, Minnesota. That was in September. Yeah. I think they were playing against the team that we had to play against. I think that's why I'm remembering them. They were in the bracket.
Hosting.
That's right. Yes.
Region.
I was like, dude, I swear I've watched them play a game, and I think it was just because I was watching the game that decided who we had to watch. So yes, that was what I was thinking of. But we are 2-0 all time against Northwest Missouri State. The last matchup was a 4-0 victory for the Beavers back in 2015. And then I guess if we wanted to check on Missouri Western, I do believe we played them last year as well. or the year before. I've seen them on the schedule. We're 3-2-1 all time. Last year was a loss. The year before that was a tie. And then all the way back to 2016, we won against them 4-1. So need to get a little revenge for the game last season. They lost 1-0. But again, it's difficult to say. You don't have a lot of years of data on how good these teams really are. I know both of them are at least decent. Northwest Missouri State's been in the tournament recently, and Missouri Western beat us last year and then tied us the year before when we were still a tournament level team. So these are both quality opponents. If the Beavers can come out of it with, obviously points aren't a thing in the out of conference, but 4 points, I think I would be really happy with that. And if they can get a couple of wins this weekend, I feel really confident rolling into the next weekend.
Feel really, really confident if that were ended up being the case. It's a lot of good stuff for that women's soccer team. We'll see how they end up doing coming into the start of this season. I know last week on the show, we had a couple women's soccer players that we highlighted as part of the Bemidji State women's soccer's top 30 team, or the 30th anniversary team, I think is how they phrased it. And basically they highlighted 30 athletes on their team throughout the years, and kind of wanted to put a spotlight on that. We talked about their very first couple members of the team last week and things like that, as that's been going on. So there's been a whole lot of names that have been mentioned. So I'm trying to find the exact right spot here on the list is where we started a week ago. But why don't we just get right to some of the names here on this list that we can mention here. If we go to a post that they had on August 27th on the BSU women's soccer page, and this is where you can kind of check them all out. Kelly Haver was named to the list, all region and all NSIC, 3-time NSIC all academic, 9th in career points, 10th in career goals. She played from 2005 to 2008. Congratulations to her as well. And why don't we look in net for Catherine Arneson, who was a member of the 30th anniversary team, the NSIC goalkeeper of the year, all region, 2-time all NSIC, 2-time academic All-American, 3rd best GAA in program history. And Catherine Anderson playing from 2014 to 2017, and kind of a part of that era of BSU women's soccer that really started to elevate to it being kind of a national tournament contender kind of every year. So shout out to her. Anything on those first two names so far, Ian?
No, very, very deserving. I do remember Arneson, I believe, in net, like when I first got on campus. And yeah, that was kind of the team, the era of BSU soccer that started this trajectory, is when we started to see them kind of leap forward. And then you said Haber, she was top 10 in a couple of very good statistical categories. I didn't see her play. That was before my time, but I respect the list.
Yeah, and another member of this team as well, Maggie Cade, midfielder, played from 19 to 23. All region, all NSIC, a scholar all region, 4-time NSIC all academic, and the career games played leader. I think that automatically gets you on that list. Yeah,
of course. She was lights out for the Beavers. It's a very solid pick.
Very solid pick. Megan Wallner, another member of this list as well. All NSIC, 3-time all academic, Ring of Honor member, one of Beaver Soccer's all-time greats. Tied for 4th in most games started, tied for 7th in most games played. A defender from 04 to 07 on that Bemidji State women's soccer team. Jamie Ford also making the list for BSU women's soccer. Sixth most points at BSU, 6th most assists, and 8th most goals. Also, she played from 06 to 2010. So just, again, a great list here of some of them. You can go check out their Twitter page that has all of them that feature names like Melanie Peltier. You have Haley Peterson. You have Trina Bartel. There's just a lot of great names on this list that deserve some recognition. So go out and give them a shout out there, because honestly, it's really tough to probably pick the 30 greatest BSU women's soccer players because, at least in recent history, the program has just had such a good track record. And there have been some other great players, great teams before that. Really, really cool list.
Yeah, of course. That's it's cool they're doing that. 30 years. That's a long time for a program of this, size, I should say. Bemidji's not the biggest school, so good that they're honoring some of the players from the past that have helped build this program into what it's been over the last decade.
Yeah. Now let's take a look over into some men's and women's men's and women's golf. Jeez. Men's and women's golf, they're getting ready on Monday. They are going to be hosting in Bemidji. It's a Bemidji State Invitational for the men's side. It's the Tracy Lane Memorial Tournament on the women's side, and that'll be on Monday and Tuesday of next week. So we'll kind of have the recap of that by next show. But if you look at women's golf, they are predicted to finish 13th in the preseason coaches poll. And on the men's golf side, they are predicted to finish 4th in the coaches poll as well. So pretty high standard for the men's golf team this year. And of course, it's always tough for golf because they play a little bit in the fall and then they come back in the spring. So they're just kind of on hiatus for all the winter, which is just pretty much most of the school year in Bemidji. But it's really cool that they're getting that recognition. They start their seasons on Monday.
Absolutely. Yep. Fall golf is always a little bit pre-season-y. It doesn't feel like it really starts to get serious until they get back out there in the spring. But it's good that they're, got some events in Bemidji. This is about the cutoff point. It starts to get pretty nasty up there once September starts to hit.
There's a reason why Bemidji State's like, we'll host the one at the beginning of September. We know we can get that one in. Do not sign us up for a golf tournament until June.
Yeah.
Otherwise, It's just going to be dicey. So, all right, let's wrap things up by talking a little cross country. They are getting their campaign going as well. Their first meet of the season coming up on Friday, I believe. They are predicted to finish 9th in the preseason poll in the NSIC. They are not going to the Dragon Twilight like some schools are over in Moorhead. They are going to be starting on Friday in South Dakota at the Augustana race. That'll be at Yankton Trail Park in South Dakota. It's a 5,000 meter race, so a 5K essentially. And that 5K race will be taking place again on Friday. And then they're off for a couple weeks after that. They'll be playing at the GRIAC Invitational, one of the last ones that'll be held at that Lee Bolstead golf course down at the University of Minnesota, because they sold that off because the state high school leagues, state cross country meet's not going to be at the U anymore after this fall. So they'll be competing in that on the 19th of September. But their season kicks off on Friday, racing down in Augustana. Maggie McCarthy named the preseason athlete to watch for BSU women's soccer, for women's cross country. A lot of sports we've been running through here, Ian.
Yeah.
So that is how their season's going to get underway. Let's talk a little volleyball now that we're here, because a new era with Coach Butte taking over for the program is going to officially get underway on Friday. Bemidji State volleyball predicted to finish 13th in the preseason coaches poll. They're going to see if they can try and shoot past those expectations in year one. They're going to the Eckerd Classic in Florida. They're going to be taking on Ohio Dominican, Maryville University of Florida, Puerto Rico, Mayaguez, probably butchered that, and Eckerd College. All 4 matches that are going to be happening this weekend, 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and then they head to another tournament late next week in Kenosha, Wisconsin, before getting conference play underway on September 19th. So a couple tournaments to get the season going. Always good to kind of face some teams you're not quite sure that you've played against, just to break up the monotony a little bit. But Bemidji State has a new era of volleyball that's starting on Friday.
Yeah, that's super exciting. These preseason tournaments are always, again, very much up in the air for women's volleyball. It's hard to tell exactly what type of opponent you're getting in these preseason tournaments, but at the very least, we talk about this with baseball and softball a little bit in the spring semester. It's cool to get to go down to Florida. I get that they're playing inside, but what could be more beautiful than St. Petersburg, Florida, followed up with a trip to Kenosha, Wisconsin?
Yeah, exactly. You go to St. Petersburg, and then you go to Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is the St. Petersburg of Wisconsin, I think.
Yes.
Or
Yes,
something.
100%. So
At least you're close to Tampa Bay when you go to St. Petersburg.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a good start to the season for them. Looking at the preseason rankings as well in the coaches poll, sophomore middle blocker Ava Athman was tabbed as the Beavers preseason player to watch. And looking at the quote from Coach Butte, she says Bemidji State is going to look a lot different this season after graduating several key starters. They have 15 underclassmen on the roster. And of course, she says the things a coach will say: bring a ton of energy, the eagerness to improve. They got 3 senior leaders who they're looking to get things going for them, and that's kind of been their experience. And we'll see. They're all kind of gonna grow together in a way. With when you talk about the 15 underclassmen and not a whole lot of seniors, Coach Butte, not only in her first season leading the program, but also like a pretty recent graduate herself. If you remember, she is an alum, I believe, of Augustana. Or some school in the it was an alumni of Augustana, where she graduated not all that long ago, kind of around the 2020 era, and then was head coach of some AAU volleyball teams and things like that kind of in the meantime. But she's going to get her start here and kind of going to get thrown into this thing and see what happens. And this is a good year. If you're going to be your first year, you might as well have it with some young players who you feel like you can kind of build with over the next couple seasons.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see what happens. Volleyball's been not bad over the last couple of years. I'm optimistic about what this team can do this year.
Right. And, the new look, how things will, when they always say new look, it means that they also kind of don't know either. They're figuring some things out, and they're going to, some playing time is going to happen at the beginning of the season that'll shrink. Some will grow. It just is all kind of dependent. You just kind of throw whoever at the wall at the beginning of the year and kind of see what sticks when you're starting off with a new unit. So that's how things are shaping up on campus for Bemidji State. Think that's going to wrap it up. Ian, anything else we're missing on today's show?
Don't think so. We have fully entered the fall semester here. We are rearing to go. There's going to be tons of sports action this weekend. Football's back at home next weekend. Volleyball should be back in a couple of weeks. Like, pretty soon we'll get a lot of events back on campus, and then it'll officially feel like the semester has started from a athletic perspective.
Yeah, for the students, syllabus week is over. They're thrown back into it. So, it feels like everybody's kind of getting slowly back in. NFL starts on Thursday, college football over the weekend, just a lot of stuff. By the way, should be noted, we got through an episode without Ian throwing in a Chargers reference, unless he threw it in at some point. And I missed
No,
it.
I did not. I didn't. I held back. I had one, but I didn't.
Oh, tell me, because now I'm interested. What was your Chargers?
I was going to make a comparison from the football game to the Chargers playoff loss against the Texans, where like the first half, it's like, all right, this is here for the taking, but they weren't doing anything to actually like take over the game.
This game, but it feels like,
and then it just spiraled in the second half and went completely off the rails. Hey, at least Romack and Carver did not throw 4 interceptions in this game, like my boy Justin Herbert did to seal the deal. But yeah, there you go. There's
there
the Chargers
you have it. Ian Rivers, noted Justin Herbert fan, declares that Zach Romack and Connor Carver are better than his quarterback.
I have no comment. No comment. I will not speak any slander on my boys Zach Romack or Connor Carver. So, nor will I on Justin Herbert,
even though you kind of did.
Yeah, he'll earn it back this coming Friday for free on YouTube. You can watch them beat the Chiefs. You heard it here first.
Is that the one in Brazil?
Yes, Sao Paulo. I think that's the only reason that we have a chance, is because it's gonna be a weird situation, and it's going to be like, oh, it's not a real win because something weird happened because the game's in Brazil. Like, maybe Mahomes gets like
quarterback pulls a Jordan Love and
the
injures their knee that impacts them all season on the shoddy field.
Oh man.
What could possibly go wrong, Ian? What could possibly go wrong?
No, hopefully nothing. But
nothing's ever gone wrong for the Chargers.
No. It's a great storied franchise, man.
All according to plan.
Yes.
All right. That's enough of that. We'll see you guys next time. This has been the Beaver Banter podcast. Follow us on all of the social media channels. YouTube is where you can find us, anywhere you get your podcasts. And once again, big shout out to the Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation and all the great work that they're doing over there. Go follow them on Twitter, on Facebook. They're doing a lot of great stuff for the university, and it's just a great thing to be a part of. And we'd encourage you to go do so. I know they got some stuff planned for homecoming and things like that that are upcoming that are going to be really fun to hear about the closer we get. So thanks to them, and we'll